You'd be in trouble if she talks about inheritance, because they don't even have a big house. Yay, and I didn't expect her to give Monica a birthday gift when she left. Mom might be trying to show affection for Monica in her own way. While chatting with my husband, Arthur, I opened the present from my mother-in-law that was addressed to our daughter. What on earth did she give to our daughter? I checked the contents of the gift with a little excitement, but the moment I saw what was inside the box, I was consumed by rage. What the hell is this? In anger, I threw the gift into the trash. Arthur, who had been changing into his house clothes in the room, was surprised to see the gift in the trash. Hey Mary, what are you doing? Mom went out of her way to buy a gift for Monica. That's going too far. My husband, oblivious to everything, scolded me. Did you see what's inside? You'd want to throw this kind of gift away too. It's unbelievable. At my words, Arthur made a puzzled face. Then he took the paper bag out of the trash and looked inside. You're kidding, right? My name is Mary. I'm a 30-year-old housewife. Arthur and I have been married for 3 years. I used to work, but when I gave birth to Monica last year, I quit my job. We both adore our daughter, and life as a family of 3 is truly blissful. I wish this warm time could continue forever. However, there's one thing that concerns me. As you might guess, it's my relationship with my mother-in-law. She initially struck me as a very kind person. Even when we went to announce our marriage, she readily accepted our union. Although we didn't visit her house often, whenever we did, she was always kind to me, and I believed we had built a very good relationship. The change started about a year after our marriage. Sadly, my father-in-law passed away due to illness. My mother-in-law loved him very much and was deeply saddened. She was really down, and Arthur seemed clueless about how to console her. Although she slowly regained her energy, which relieved both Arthur and me, she started being hard on me. Apparently, after her husband's death, she realized that her only source of affection was her only son, and seemed to be treating me coldly out of jealousy that I had taken her precious son from her. Also, she seemed to take pride in the family property and the family lineage she had inherited from her father-in-law, and she once told me directly, "Don't think you can just inherit this house easily. Even though the property is valuable, it wasn't originally hers, and logically it would be Arthur who would inherit it, so I shouldn't have anything to do with it." But my mother-in-law started treating me as an annoyance, and she also started tormenting me. "Mary, when are you going to have a baby? You have a responsibility to give birth to an heir. If you can't do that, you'll have to break up with Arthur." This was my mother-in-law's attitude towards me after she became cold. Every time we met, she would rush me to have a baby. I gave birth to a child last year, and to be honest, I am surprised that I was able to give birth under such stress. However, my mother-in-law was not satisfied that the child who was born was a daughter, and she said, "Well, then next year," as if it was a matter of course. Having children in consecutive years is tough. Besides, Arthur and I haven't discussed whether to have a second child after just one. Even when I said this, my mother-in-law's response was the same. "What are you talking about? You still have the responsibility to give birth to an heir. No matter how many children you have, giving birth to a boy is an absolute duty." She consistently repeats the same things to the point where it's shocking. She reiterates the same phrases so often, I often wonder if she's an AI robot incapable of saying anything else. In this day and age, her insistence on having a male heir is absurdly outdated. I wish she would abandon these antiquated ideas and cherish her current granddaughter, Monica. Each time I meet her, it only leaves me feeling disgusted. Yet, she puts on a facade for my husband, her son. She plays the understanding and kind mother-in-law in front of him. The difference between her expressions when it's just the two of us and when my husband is present is so stark, I feel like taking photos and comparing them. She probably looks like a completely different person, to the point that you could even call it a dual personality. No matter how much she hides it from my husband, her atrocious behavior towards me, her daughter-in-law, is honestly questionable as a human being. Doesn't she consider the possibility of me telling my husband about her behavior? Or does she think she can keep deceiving him indefinitely? Throughout my pregnancy, she relentlessly tormented me, causing a lot of trouble. As soon as my husband was out of sight, she would come up to me and say, "You do understand, right? If it's not a boy, I won't forgive you. If it's a girl, get an abortion." When she said that, I seriously doubted her humanity. When I protested, "That's going too far," she said, "If you give birth to a girl, she'll just end up getting married and leaving. That would be a waste of money and time." I thought to myself, this woman is really hopeless. For me, it didn't matter whether the baby was a boy or a girl. All I hoped for was a healthy child. I wanted to shower them with love regardless of their gender. So, my mother-in-law's words were a significant source of stress for me. Every time she made these comments, I would respond ambiguously, just trying to get through until the birth. The attitude of my mother-in-law, when she found out the baby was a girl, was as terrible as expected. She inadvertently revealed the insidious face she usually hides in front of my husband. "Why is it a girl? I told you time and time again to give birth to a boy." This was the first thing she said when she came to visit the hospital and saw her granddaughter. My husband, who was completely oblivious, seemed unable to comprehend what was happening when he heard her say this. My mother-in-law would always come to our apartment when my husband was not around. "I'm here to educate you as my daughter-in-law." She used to say that, but it felt more like she came over under the pretense of educating me just to torment me. The sarcastic comments disguised as guidance continued persistently until I got used to the rules she arbitrarily imposed. "You really can't cook, can you? Aren't you embarrassed to make such awful food? Po Arthur, maybe you can't give birth to a boy because you can only make such food." That's definitely not the case, but she would find any excuse to criticize my housekeeping skills and blame me for not being able to produce a male heir. "You clean so poorly. If you're going to be so rough and manly, you should give birth to a boy. It's a complete mess." Seems like she just wants to relate everything to that. My mother-in-law, always criticizing everything I do, saying it's wrong, and demanding I redo it. She visited often, and gave me such a hard time with this attitude. It was truly exhausting. And each time I interact with my mother-in-law, I find myself disliking her more and more. I have my own way of doing household chores, and I don't want to constantly hear that I should have a boy. I wonder if I should have insisted on this more strongly. But somewhere in my heart, I felt sorry for my mother-in-law, who was grieving the loss of my father-in-law. Maybe one day she would return to the kind woman she used to be. I even harbored such faint hope. Perhaps my naive thinking let my mother-in-law get out of hand. And then one day, as usual, she came over to our house, complained about this and that, and then said we should have a boy like it was some kind of mantra. I've even thought of a name already. Excuse me. The name's Thomas. How does that sound? Niece, isn't it? My disgust for my mother-in-law just kept growing. As I went through days like these, our daughter's second birthday was approaching. Desperate to make my daughter happy, I had been preparing for this day in various ways. And then, like a pop quiz, my mother-in-law showed up. She always seems to time it for when my husband is at work during the day. Even on a day when we're celebrating our daughter's birthday. I really didn't want to see her today. Well, I never want to see her. I put the birthday preparations on hold, made some tea, and entertained my mother-in-law in the living room. "Really, I wonder why she's a girl," my mother-in-law said, looking at my daughter. "Please stop, it's my daughter's birthday today. I wish she would just leave already." Recently, my mother-in-law hasn't been nagging me about household chores as much. Part of it was that I was getting used to it, and I was starting to get the hang of what would satisfy her. Well, the comments about having a boy and carrying on the family line are still as frequent as ever. "Are you still not pregnant? It's not going to be a close age gap anymore, so you should hurry up and have a boy." I've said this many times, but my husband and I are not planning to have a child at all costs. Who knows what will happen with children? This time we were able to have a daughter not long after getting married, but there are couples who can't have children no matter how many years pass. Children don't come along according to one's wishes. You would think this is obvious if you gave it a little thought. I must have been quite stressed out. This was the first time I had spoken so firmly and clearly to my mother-in-law. When I said this, she widened her eyes in anger. What kind of daughter-in-law am I dealing with here? It's because of your attitude that you're not giving birth to a boy. You're brainwashing Arthur too, aren't you? Of course you are. Otherwise, Arthur should be hoping for a boy just like me. I was flabbergasted. It seemed futile to argue with my mother-in-law. I've told you many times, you're worthless until you give birth to a boy. I couldn't let her walk all over me anymore. Please, enough is enough. My husband has never spoken to me like that. My husband, our daughter, and I have built a very happy family. It's you who is disrupting that. If you're planning to tear apart my precious family, don't ever come back to this house. I finally said it. I let loose all my farts and complaints. My mother-in-law listened to my words, and then, with clenched fists, she glared at me, her hands shaking. She seemed about to say something, but just then, Arthur came home. Immediately, she changed her attitude and said, "Arthur, welcome home." I was disgusted with her quick change in demeanor. "Mom, I didn't know you were here." "Yes, but I'm leaving now." "No, right. I forgot. This is for your daughter, Monica's birthday." Huh. With that, my mother-in-law handed me a paper bag. "Well then, Arthur, take care of yourself." Yay. Then, she left with a smile. Arthur and I were both dumbfounded. Was Mom okay? "Yay, we were almost in a fight, but then you came back." She's really hopeless. I had been discussing my mother-in-law with Arthur for a while. When I recorded and played back our conversations at Arthur's request, he said, "This is awful." Afterwards, he told me, "If Mom does something outrageous again, let me know." He's been on my side. And that's what led to today. I recorded my interaction with my mother-in-law today as well, and played it for Arthur. Well, you really had a row. You'd be in trouble if she talks about inheritance, because they don't even have a big house. But I didn't expect her to give Monica a birthday gift when she left. Mom might be trying to show affection for Monica in her own way. While chatting with Arthur, I opened the present from my mother-in-law that was addressed to our daughter. What on earth did she give us? I checked the contents of the gift with a little excitement, but the moment I saw what was inside the box, I was consumed by rage. What the hell is this? In anger, I threw the gift into the trash. Arthur, who had been changing into his house clothes in the room, was surprised to see the gift in the trash. "Hey, Mary, what are you doing?" Even though Mom went out of her way to buy a gift for Monica. "That's going too far." My husband, oblivious to everything, scolded me. From an outsider's perspective, it's abnormal behavior. But I knew Arthur would understand. "Did you see what's inside? You'd want to throw this kind of gift away too." "It's unbelievable." At my words, Arthur made a puzzled face. Then he took the paper bag out of the trash and looked inside. "You're kidding, right?" The gift from my mother-in-law was unthinkable. One was a stack of papers. It was documentation for putting a child up for adoption. In other words, my mother-in-law was demanding that we give up our daughter for adoption. The other was a virility drug. So, she's probably telling us to actively try for a child and hurry up and have a boy. Even Arthur was shaking at her outrageous behavior. "This is going too far." As he muttered quietly, he put the car keys in his pocket, and then he headed for the door. I followed my husband, holding our daughter in my arms. We were heading straight to his parents' house. Anger was the only thing simmering within us. Neither of us spoke, but we shared the same feelings. Soon enough, we arrived at his parents' house. My husband opened the door without even ringing the bell and let himself in. I followed him into the house. Upon opening the living room door, my mother-in-law was casually sipping tea. "No. You came over. Weren't you celebrating Monica's birthday?" Her nonchalance suggested that the gift was no big deal. In a low voice, my husband asked, "What's the meaning of this, Mom? That gift you sent?" His voice was unmistakably full with anger. Unfazed, or possibly oblivious, my mother-in-law chuckled smugly through her nose. "I thought it was time to seriously consider having a son. You said you weren't considering a second child, right? If you give up your first child for adoption, you'll have a reason to make another. That's crazy. To suggest that we give up our precious daughter for adoption for a male heir. You should be aware of your responsibility as the only son of this family." Apparently, my mother-in-law had lost her patience, revealing her true colors even to her son, my husband. I see. So that's how you think, Mom. Yes, that's right. You need to have a son to protect the family line. Enough of that. I love Monica, and I love Mary. Isn't it more important to have a family bonded by blood, rather than lineage? I've always cared about you as a parent who is related by blood. So, please take care of Monica as well. To consider giving her up for adoption is way out of line. My husband said this to his mother, angry yet gently. However, his kindness seemed to go unnoticed by my mother-in-law. Ah, I see you don't understand me as much as I thought you did. What? You see, there's no point in giving birth to a girl. After all, she'll just marry into another family. It's your duty to carry on this respectable family line. Upon hearing my mother-in-law's words, my husband unclenched his fists. I see. My words won't reach your ears anymore. If this house and lineage are so important to you, why don't you protect them all by yourself till the end? I won't get in your way. At my husband's words, my mother-in-law tilted her head. What are you talking about? You are the only son of this family. By default, you are to inherit this house and land and become the head of the family. My husband gave a slight smile and said to her, "Nope, I refuse. I'm cutting ties with you and becoming adopted into Mary's family." What? My mother-in-law was flustered by my husband's sudden declaration of adoption. That's unacceptable. You have to inherit this house and have a son. I'm tired of all that. I can't forgive you anymore. You crossed a line. You went too far. Spend your time reflecting alone. No. Arthur, wait. My mother-in-law, her head bowed low, tried to cling to my husband's leg. He shook off her hand, and we left her house together. Later, we explained the situation to my parents, and my husband became an adopted son of my family. Now, she's no longer our family. According to what my husband secretly heard from a relative, my mother-in-law is bedridden from the shock of being abandoned by her only son. But I don't pity her, nor do I sympathize. After all, she has done so much to us. She should regret her selfish actions. Then, my husband and I, along with our daughter, moved into a newly purchased home, partly to avoid any intrusion from my mother-in-law, but also because it felt like the right time to buy our own house. Now, the three of us are living happily together in our beautiful new home. I'm so glad that my husband prioritizes me and our daughter. No matter what happens in the future, I'm sure we can get through it together and enjoy our daily lives.